Hello, everyone, and welcome to the seventh episode of the Scale Podcast. Today, I have Mark from Arc Guide on our show here, and I'm planning to talk a lot about the content creation space of architecture, the educational side of things, and also the new and upcoming features with AI in architecture. So, how have you been, Mark?
Been good, man. Been good. Lots of work, lots of
Well,
content creating.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. I've seen some of your stuff in TikTok and on some other platforms. Can you take us back a little bit on what made you start the content creation journey in the architecture space?
Um, what got me kicked off? So, a couple of different things. I was encouraged by a friend who just recently started making content themselves.
Hmm.
They're in a bit of a different niche themselves, but over the course of say 6 months to a year, they'd managed to completely supplement their entire income from their creative endeavors online. So I was like,
Hmm.
wow, man, that's and they're encouraging me the whole time. They're just like, dude, just like give it a go, just start, give it a try. So I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. So I made the first video. Everyone, they encouraged me, and just kept on making and making and making.
Hmm.
And as far as the videos themselves, like within the niche, like the short form, the way I kind of structured it was even if I lose, I still win. So how could you make content that would benefit you and your audience, even if it didn't catch traction? So for
Hmm.
me, it was just deep diving into really nuanced parts of buildings and building design. So when you walk down the street, let's say you look up at a roof, you just see this thing spinning around. You're like, what is that? Like, what's its function? Everything else in between. So um, and this is where I just kicked off. So I'd record it, do a deep dive. I had cursory knowledge, a lot of things.
Hmm.
I actually found out that it's so funny. You think you have like a good rounded knowledge of certain aspects of architecture, but it's not until like you pull off like the lid and you're like, oh, there's like so much more to learn. So
Hmm.
for me, yeah, it was doing this. That was the part where even if the video didn't catch traction, I was still learning a lot, and I could share information that I would hope would give people value.
100%. That's definitely valuable, and I've seen that kind of thing happen with me as well. That as I create content, even to this day, I still learn new things just by even not intending to do that, and even from the audience and stuff like that. So it's very, very, um, as you said, even if you lose in terms of viewership, you still win a lot by
Hmm.
the knowledge that you gain throughout the process. So what has been your winning platform as of now? What kind of made you took off and kind of get more traction?
Winning platforms so far, I've been pretty fortunate with TikTok. That's where I first caught that little bit of traction. It was a video about stairs of all things,
Hmm.
how to calculate the rise and the going,
Hmm.
and just the general requirements, how to figure out a set of stairs. Once that
Hmm.
caught a little bit of traction, it's like people saw that, then just went through my catalog, just watched the others, and yeah,
Hmm.
the occasional random video would kind of pop off from there.
And
So
how long ago
TikTok
was
took,
that?
uh, gosh, I'd say probably 18, maybe to 20 months ago now.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's very good.
Uh,
And that's even back when TikTok was super, like, even now you have a lot of, there's a lot of virality opportunity, but back then it was even more open source, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
did you have any kind of like paid products that you were offering back then? Like, did you see the revenue spike up from that single video as well?
At the time, I didn't have anything that I was
Mhm.
selling. I was just doing it to get into the rhythm of doing it
Mhm.
and see what might pop
Yeah.
up with, like, as far as AdSense.
Hmm.
Since then, I've learned that AdSense for TikTok, it's not particularly lucrative. So I went down different other avenues of creating
Hmm. Yeah.
products that I could potentially monetize with. But the spike would then channel that through the link tree, and from the link tree through to the website. People would check out things from there. So when you did get a spike from a video, you definitely got a spike on website viewership. So yeah,
100%.
on that
That's
front. 100%.
Well, the thing is, I like to talk on the podcast a lot about the entrepreneurship kind of things in the architecture space as well, because we always see people struggling on that side. Even if they have the knowledge, it's not so easy to capitalize on it. And I think that content creation is a great platform in order to do so. That's why I like to dive deep in these kind of stuff. But can you share a little bit more about your background, like in terms of the architecture space? What did you do prior to starting content creation, or is there still something that you do? Is content creation still something that you do on the side right now?
Yeah. Of
Mhm,
the entire time, even up till like right now, I'm still a full-time senior building designer. So
mhm,
day in, day out, Monday to Friday,
mhm,
I'm designing buildings, which comes in handy with the content creation, aside
mhm,
from the kind of time constraints that come along with that. But yeah, no, I've been a building designer for a bit over a decade. I started in 2011. I kicked
mhm,
off. Um, and then, yeah, just been designing buildings, but based in near Newcastle, in New South Wales, Australia. From
mhm.
there, eventually, I ended up just getting a little bit of experience up in Brisbane and then popping back down here to New South Wales here at the moment.
That's
Um,
great.
yeah, and as far as how I got to start, I feel like if I was, I've been asked this a little bit actually. Someone reached out to me, I think it was yesterday, just asking how do they get their foot in the door with architecture? How do you get your start? They were
Mhm,
very fortunate to have picked up a job doing drafting for an engineering firm, but their heart was in architectural design. So they said, look, if you're starting out, how would you get your start in architecture? So I had a bit of a think about it. And my advice to them, which I was probably keen to make a video on, so this is probably perfect timing actually,
mhm,
um, was that in person is such an uncrowded place at the moment. Like everything's online, like just as far as job applications, Seek,
mhm,
all the paths that have become more mainstream now. But in person, if you're a person who can communicate well, like, and I don't even mean like you're a socialite or anything like that. Just you can have a casual conversation, just talk to someone. If you put yourself in an environment where there is potential opportunity, like here in New South Wales, just based in
mhm,
our kind of context, there's this thing called the BDA, Building Designers Association. Within the BDA, they've got these things they call chapter events, and these chapter events is where everyone who is part of the membership of the BDA get together and they all discuss building design, things that are happening in the industry, um, tools, tips, and stuff that they've solved. So
mhm,
all these people to get together. So I said, look, if you can jump in, if you feel like you're comfortable with that,
mhm,
um, go to some of these events. Like they're just filled with potential to meet people. And
mhm,
it's literally happened in the past. Like when I first did my course, I knew a lady. That's how she got her start. She went to a chapter event and she got talking to someone. They said, "Look, I actually need a drafts person." Then,
mhm,
boom! All of a sudden, she's drafting. So, in person is such an under crowded space at the moment.
mhm.
Highly recommend. I
And what do
forget
you
what
think?
the original question was, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's definitely helpful because I want to segue into what you think are the main skills that these practice owners are looking for, or what do you think is the most demanded skill in order to get started with architecture? Because we know that you cannot like start as a senior building designer straight away, right? There's steps they have to take. So if someone is looking to take a job and get started, because there's a lot of students that watch us right now, what do you think are the main skills that they need, or maybe even specific software that is more looked out for?
great question. Like, what kind of skills? What I'd probably a way I'd probably frame it would be what problems can you solve for the person whose business that
Mm-hmm,
you're looking to get hired at?
mm-hmm,
Because that's all a business is. They're looking to solve problems. So they're looking to bring people on who are going to save them time, stress, money, and energy for something that is happening in their business.
yeah.
Just as like a baseline skill, though, if you can get technically proficient within software like ArchiCAD, Revit, I don't know if SketchUp is particularly useful. Like it's what a lot of people use because it's free off the start. But what I would recommend to find out before you deep dive into any software, before you start learning it, just go on Seek, go on LinkedIn, go on whatever platform is relevant to your local context, where you'll be able to find jobs. Within those job listings, it will tell you what software. So within the job listing, it'll tell you the software and the typical roles that they'll need. So in all of that, we can extrapolate what kind of skill set we're going to need. So if you type in ArchiCAD in Seek here in New South Wales, you'll see how many jobs there are relevant to ArchiCAD. And likewise, if you do the same thing for Revit, you'll see how many jobs pop up for, say, Revit. Yeah. Now, one little nuance when it comes to, say, if you're typing in Revit, is it's not always going to be, say, architectural design jobs. It might also be other structural design jobs, things like this. So just keep an eye out for that. But to tie back to the original question, what kind of skill set? So you'll want at least a preliminary knowledge of how to draw. And the incredible thing is there's so many resources out online at the moment. Like even Eric, he's a really big channel in the YouTube space. He goes through his typical workflow and how he kind of lays things out. And the big thing is like line weights, like how to make a set of plans look clear.
Yeah. That might be even a bit, you can go even to simpler stuff, right? Because that's a bit more, maybe a bit too advanced. Like there's firms that need people who just understand what is required in terms of the municipality requirements to get stuff like that. So, I mean, that's what I'm thinking about. Getting an understanding from Eric's videos is 100% super helpful. But that might be even an over qualification.
A bit nuanced. Look, if you want to be, I get you. I think to be baseline to be useful within a firm, here contextual to what I know is if I had someone walk in the door and say, how can I be useful in the next 6 weeks? I'd say, all right, learn how to use ArchiCAD. I want you to be able to draw a site plan, floor plan, elevations, and a section. If you can do those 4, that covers most of the typical plans that we're going to have in and that we're going to produce. Those are the 4. The other more technical stuff, we can get through to that when we get to construction stage, but just learn at least those 4. If you can learn how to draw those, that's a big kickstart. Next up, after you learn that, I want you to learn DCP, Development Control Plans. So this is what the council has specified as minimum site setbacks, rear setbacks. I want you to research the LEP. And the thing is, there's easy tools to be able to use these now. So you can just go onto the website and go onto the planning portal, all that kind of stuff, and you can find out what the minimum heights are. Because you can design the most incredible structure, but if it doesn't fit within your local council's requirements, 100%. It's never going to get built.
It's not going to happen. It's almost like getting the Infinity Stones for becoming an architect. There's a lot of things that goes into this. I mean, there's I see job posts all the time. Like I have some architecture firms that I follow, and it's like we need someone who does Photoshop, who does ArchiCAD, who does Illustrator, who does SketchUp, rendering, and all of these kind of things. And I think that, in my opinion, it's much better if, if you are a student, just focus in 1 or 2, and you're gonna be good enough to get started. And then once you're super comfortable with those, you can even expand on that. So at least that's what I think.
Yeah, if I was just to elaborate just a little bit further, would be what is the primary product of the design firm that you're looking to go into? So if they're doing like renders, get good at renders. That's a big thing. For a typical building design firm, you'll want to be able to produce a set of plans, and within a set of plans, it's floor plan, site plan, floor plan, elevations, and a section. You want to be able to produce that within the software, say like ArchiCAD or Revit. If you can do that, you've at least ticked the minimum necessary requirements to produce the product that the building design firm is trying to supply to the client. Because the client is looking for a solution to their problem. And the solution is a set of plans that can be brought from concept all the way to actually being built. That's the problem we're solving. So if you can at least tick one of those primary boxes at the start, that's really good stuff.
I mean, at the end of the day, an employee is either going to save time or save money. So if you can do either one of those
Yeah.
two, the firm owner, I mean, you're going to be pretty much useful. But in the other side of things, people can also consider to become freelancers with these skills, right? Like this can be also like a side thing. You can also be a drafter at a firm, and then also offer your services as a freelancer. Then you can do that part time. I mean, there's so much possibility, and I think that people just need to get more creative. I think that in the architecture space, there's a lot of room to use some more modern or new marketing techniques that can get people ahead in this kind of stuff, because I think that is still super left behind on that sense. I mean, um, it's not super advanced on that side of things, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And to add to your point, with different ways and different avenues of uh, making money and producing value. So one thing is to say be for a design firm. If you're fortunate enough to find a design firm that you really like working for,
Mhm.
you can get your primary source of income from them. But if you're still looking to make income on the side, if you're trying to make that above and beyond, um, if you're technically proficient in, say, something like ArchiCAD, do tutoring. Like if you're the best person in your class at doing, say, ArchiCAD, Revit, SketchUp, whatever it is, and this could just mean you spend like an extra couple of weekends just literally YouTubing and finding out just that little bit extra that everyone else in the class doesn't have to know. All of a sudden, you're the go-to person, and because you're that scarce resource, your time is worth like money. You can solve problems the other students are having.
Yeah.
um, I did a little bit of tutoring back in the day. Like, I was fortunate that I got in-field experience with like I got started first in my building design while I was doing my course at the same time. So all that experience I was able to then help other students with like problems that popped up with ArchiCAD. So tutoring, man. Like if you get really technically proficient at a set of software,
Mhm.
then yeah, that's just another tool in your toolkit to be able
The
to
other
help people out.
Yeah, the other thing is a lot of people kind of, I think, have a misconception that you have to include things in tutoring or even in courses, things that are not online. And that is simply, in my opinion, not true. You can just structure the content well enough for people to have an easier path to follow rather than just watching random videos in the wrong timeline. And I think that is
Yeah.
100% still super valuable, even if people have that content for free, right?
Yeah. And
So
if you're in person, like man, what an advantage. Someone's got an immediate problem that they need solved right now. You're in the same room as them and you've got the solution. Like
yeah,
it
100%.
just makes sense. You help like I helped a bunch of people out before I started charging. I like to begin with. Like I like people would have things pop up with their questions like, oh, why is this happening? Like all of a sudden, all the colors have turned to this, or my roof's disappeared. Whatever. I'll be, oh, you know, like, oh, you just need to turn this. Then all of a sudden, they're just like, hey, look, I'd really like some help. Just wondering, what's your going rate? And I was like, what do you mean? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'd like you to tutor me. So I was like, okay. So setting aside that dedicated time. So if you're doing a course and you're doing it in person, again, coming back to the thing of in person, it's such an undercrowded space. If someone's having
Mhm.
an immediate problem and you've got the key to their solution, man, what an
Or,
advantage.
or on the other hand, you can even scale it further with online consultations.
Oh,
Uh,
100%. Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure.
yeah, there's a lot of room for this kind of stuff. But can you just take me through what made you choose ArchiCAD over Revit? I mean, there's always this ongoing war between these two softwares, and more so between the users of the software. I myself, I'm not super sufficient in either of those, but I have had more experiences in ArchiCAD than Revit. Um, what made you choose ArchiCAD?
I wish I had an exciting story, but it was literally just the software that firm I was using. So
Mhm.
it,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
took me into there. But when I was doing my course for getting myself qualified, I was in there and they had both sets of software. So someone I became quite close with, Alex,
Mhm.
who I was doing the course with, um, he used Revit. So both softwares were available. I was just being taught how to use ArchiCAD within the office that I was in. I think
Mhm.
both have their strengths. But literally, at the end of the day, it's a tool to fix the problem that you're looking to solve. Like I took a course, it used to be called Linda Online, a course for Reddit, Revit. Um,
Mhm.
and it's now LinkedIn Learning or something like this, and I just went through, I just picked it up. Like I spent a month just going, okay, like how's this work? Okay, that's really different. But I guess this kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you can dedicate the time, there's resources out there to be able to pick this stuff up. So if I was all of a sudden forced tomorrow, like you can just got like that taken out, I'd be like, all right, cool. I'll pick up Reddit.
Yeah,
Reddit.
100%.
I love ICAD because it's a it's a skill I'm technically proficient in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's become an extension of myself, and it's my ability to express ideas and solve problems. So in that way, I'm attached to it. But if it were to go, like, dude, it's a tool. Just learn them. If you've got sufficient time, yeah, definitely jump in.
Do you use it on Windows or Mac?
um, so I've got a Windows. I've got a Windows PC just over
Uh-huh.
here, but I've also I'm currently doing this from a Mac, so I do it from Mac. If
Yeah,
I'm
because
doing it remotely,
mhm.
yeah, I'm doing it from the Mac.
Yeah, I was asking because Enscape for ArchiCAD on a Mac is still not available. So I was just wondering. Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be available soon. I mean, this fall. That's what I've heard from them. Um, I was I was um, I was a speaker. I did like an hour on Arc Intensive, um, and I had to. I did some ArchiCAD with Enscape, and there's a lot of people that were asking when is that coming out for Mac, and yeah, just for anyone wondering, that uses ArchiCAD, that is coming out this fall. So have you had any experiences on the 3D rendering world that you kind of prefer more than others? So I know that you've done some twin motion on your channel. What is your opinion on that kind of things?
Dude, it's night and day. Going from, I, I hate to bash ArchiCAD here, but it's just because it's not a dedicated thing that they're probably pouring as much resources into. Like, it's an incredible piece of software for so many other things, but Twinmotion is a dedicated piece of software, just like Enscape is, for rendering. Um, and when I picked up it for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
I was literally just doing a video the other day where I was using ArchiCAD's rendering system, because at the moment there's still something in Twinmotion that I can't do, but I can do in ArchiCAD. Like, it's a sketch render that has just the kind of style I'm looking for, and it looked great, but it took like 7 or 8 minutes to render a single frame. Whereas on Twinmotion, literally 10 seconds later, I've got a render done. And as you know, the more renders, like the quicker it can be done, the more iterations you have for a render. And the quicker you can iterate, and the more iterations that you've got, the more refined your design can be. So it's
Yeah,
such a leap
I
forward
think
if you can, yeah, learn that kind of stuff. Yeah, massive win.
I think some people can say that I'm biased, but I don't care. I think that Enscape has even a bigger advantage on this kind of stuff. It's a lot more faster than any other software that I've tried. I've tried Twinmotion, I've tried D5 Render, Lumion, all these real-time rendering engine. Obviously, when it comes to speed, the CPU rendering engines don't even compare. Quality is something else, but I think Enscape has a super advantage on that kind of things because um, speed is a big factor in this industry because things go super slow. It's super slow, and it's one of the other things that I don't like about working hand to hand in the architecture industry is that you have to take a lot of time to just send like a permission to like the municipality or the city that you're building, and then you have to wait for them to get back to you. And I just hate the slowness. Like, I'm someone who likes to work fast, even in content creation and that side of things. So that's why Enscape fits me also as like a personality type of things. Yeah. um the other
Yeah,
thing that
I haven't actually tried Enscape yet. The first time I was kind of exposed to Enscape was through some of the videos. So the only reason I haven't given it a try is just that whole time thing. Like, it's the time from jumping onto a new piece of software. But I've seen a lot of your internal renders, and they look like tight, man. Like the internal bedroom scenes, that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you actually, just a quick little question? Do you use ray tracing, or is that just all like from just its built-in system.
Enscape has like a built-in option for ray tracing. It has had it for a few years. I think Twinmotion just got it last year, right? Or this year?
I think so, but I think you have to have like an RTX card or something like that. Do
Yeah.
you have?
I have an
Yeah,
RTX, not anything high end. This is a 2060 because right now I'm doing I invested a little bit more on the CPU because I'm starting to do some V-Ray rendering as well. But it's not a super high end RTX card. But yeah, for ray tracing, you would need like at least like maybe a 3050, 3060. The higher the better.
yeah. I need to look into it. I've still got AMD for my graphics, and sadly, the MacBook that I've got doesn't have it either. So on both machines, just no luck. But okay,
I've
that
never,
answers that
yeah,
question.
I've never understood. Like I haven't gotten uh the hang on why Mac is useful for technical kind of work. Like a lot of the time, every time I speak to someone that uses Mac, they're always complaining. And it's like just and it's just like switch over. So um
Yeah.
yeah.
For me, I've just always been a fan of the form factor, like just the slimline stream. Like I think it's aluminium. Like the body of it, it's just it's
Mhm.
yeah, very very nice. The other thing is because I've got an iPhone, I'm able to AirDrop, so that was a really big win for me too. So I can just transfer files just
Yeah.
in a heartbeat. But yeah, day to day, I still use my big beefy
I think on
PC
that
machine.
sense, at least for me, I just got like 2 weeks ago an M2 iPad. I think that's very very useful for architects. I have an iPhone as well.
What do you use that one for?
Well,
Sorry
it's
to
very
interrupt.
useful. Yeah, it's very useful for client work if you do renders because you can just sketch out things, point out angles and stuff like that. It's very good for sketching if you do a lot of sketching. I do not do a lot amount of sketching, but um, it's just a good thing even for taking notes. I like to take notes throughout the day a lot. Like I do a lot of note taking, so that is super useful. The M2 might be a little bit of an overkill as of now, but I plan to use it even more and do some content with that side of things as well. So yeah.
Have you, if it's the M2, uh, have you got the one with, uh, is it LiDAR built in? Is there LiDAR built into the iPad by any chance?
Is there a
Because the reason I ask is just like for 3D scanning. It's something that I've been keen to dive into at some point with the whole
Mhm.
architecture thing. Like if you can 3D scan a building, I mean, like I don't know how often you're in the space, so you have to do measure ups from time to time. But if you could do like a 3D scan, it'd make things so much easier.
Yeah, I think it has that feature. I have not used that feature yet. Because most of the time I work remotely. So
Fair,
yeah.
fair, true,
Yeah, I
true.
mean, not most of the time. I think like 99% of the projects are just like more so international, Australia, UK, US, rather than in coastal where I live. But yeah. Anyway,
Cool.
so what are some other kind of tools that you think are super useful for architects these days? Because as always, pencil and paper has always been that kind of starting point for most of architects. What do you
Mm.
think is a good investment point for young architects in order to sharpen their skills?
Oh man, a good investment. Look, if you can, try and think of something that's relatively budget, but if you can get a computer that can keep up with the software that you've got instead of it being jittery, again, it comes back to that how many iterations can you do in an hour? If you've got a
Mhm.
machine that's lagging all the time, then it's going to kill you in the long term. If it takes you an extra 5 minutes every hour, that's up over the course of a year, like
100%.
over a week, over a month, over a year. So if you can get decent quality um, hardware to kick off, that's a big
Mhm.
win off the start. There's software on the software front, like basic stuff, like whatever the software is you're looking at using. I also find Photoshop fantastic as well, just for collaging, refining, marking up. I use the Adobe Creative Suite actually, so Acrobat DC. But these aren't really things that are going to make like the biggest impact. These are more basic, basic start off points. I don't know if I
Mhm.
have.
100%.
It's
Another
it's
thing that I
it's it's,
always
it's yeah.
Yeah, another thing that I always recommend people who are in architecture school is to learn graphic design. I think that is super useful for architects. I think that organizing a poster or kind of arranging like a poster is very similar to doing like an elevation or something similar to
Mm.
that. I think that learning other kind of software like as you said, Photoshop or even Illustrator, I think is super useful for architects. So that is very something that I forget to mention a lot of the times online. But yeah, I mean, the other thing that architects always complain about is not having enough time to do other things outside of architecture. Do you find yourself in that position?
Oh, 100% did, yeah. No, definitely. Um, yeah, pretty much over the past 18 to 20 months, it's either been just work or content or hanging out with like really close friends and family, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But going outside of that, yeah, nah, time is the most precious resource at the moment. So if you are looking to get into this kind of landscape, if you're learning especially, because you're going to be putting in time after, yeah,
Hmm.
time is, man, the
Yeah.
biggest one. So as far as the work-life balance, over the past, say, 18 months, it's been a little bit more skewed in the way of work, but I have been fortunate to, I'd say, was it 2018? How many years is that now? Almost 5 years ago. I popped over to Europe for 7 months. I went on a little vagabonding trip. So I just got a one-way ticket and I landed in London with 2 nights booked accommodation. I was like, yeah, all right, let's see what happens. So that was a bit of fun.
Hmm.
But since then, I've settled back into the whole work routine. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you can make some dedicated time, because that experience over there, along with all the other little pocket of pocket full of stories and fun things that I got up to, I got to soak in so much interesting and cool architecture that's different to what I'm used to here in Australia.
Mhm.
So if you
Mhm.
can carve out those little bits of time, yeah,
100%.
they'll build up a visual and experiential library that will also become a tool in your arsenal for design solving
Yes.
problems.
That's what I wanted to get to because there's a lot of things that are not 100% like they're not architecture per se, but they are architecture related and they can help a lot of people to uh, kind of even get better in architecture. I think it's very important to have some other kind of creative outlets, whether it's music, drawing, or any kind of stuff, and that can definitely improve the output in architecture.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and for me, in my opinion, you mentioned the work-life balance, and I think that it's super hard to keep that. I'd
yeah,
rather say
100%
that,
did.
yeah, and it's almost like nowadays I don't even believe in that concept. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no, like I really don't even believe in that concept. I think that uh, you don't even trying to keep the balance is like trying. I think is kind of counterintuitive. You have to automate things as much in work in order to have time for other things because sometimes it's not your choice whether you stop working now or you can just leave stuff for later on because there's deadlines and stuff like that. So I think the main objective here is to automate as much work as possible. That way, you can spend more time on other stuff. Which,
yeah.
like, I'm guilty of saving time from work and then starting new work with a
Yeah,
free
that's
time.
the funny thing. I was just about to say, man. It's
Yeah,
you put all these systems in place so you can save so much time. Then it's like, all right, now I've got all this time. I'll fill it with more work.
yeah,
It's just a cycle. I've done the exact same thing. So it's just like, oh, I've got this workflow that's so much more efficient for editing. Like I
mhm.
can use Recut. It cuts out all the silences automatically. I mean, what a time saver that is. So I can produce more videos. Things. So if
It has, yeah.
yeah,
It has been the same thing for me. I mentioned previously to start in the podcast that I've had a video editor for the last 4 or 5, almost 6 months, and prior to that, I was uploading like once every 2 weeks, and I was like, okay, now I can take like an extra 4 or 5 hours off, but I just ended up adding like 20 more hours to a week to try and upload even more. So yeah.
if it's not too much of a detour, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the whole delegation thing. It's something that I've brought on an editor for would have been a couple of months ago there now, but it's incredible when you do get stuff through to them. that like you can literally have things that are progressing while you sleep. That's such a satisfying feeling. Just similar thing to if you're able to create some kind of form of revenue while you sleep. Just very satisfying feeling. Though it does have small things that I didn't quite anticipate. Like if they do something, the volume of time it takes to give proper feedback and do it in a way where um, uh, it's positively done. So that's something that I didn't fully anticipate. I'd be curious to hear what your experience has been like
Yeah.
with delegation, even though it's not necessarily architecture specific, but it's within the realm of like if you're going to be delegating in architecture, you can do your own same kind of process.
I always say in terms of delegation, if I have to specify every single thing, I might as well just pick it with a mouse and do it myself. Like it's that kind of thing is very annoying, but I think it's also finding the right person that can understand kind of the nature of architecture. It's not super hard. I think people are overcomplicated, or they're just too controlling of the content. I myself do trust a lot of the work to the video editor that I have right now. I might give I like maybe the whole week. Uh, I do 2 or 3 hours of feedback, if so,
Hmm.
which for me is not that much because there's a lot of stuff that goes in. Like right now, with the volume that I had last month, we did, I don't know, like 2, 3 videos a week, plus we had like 90 to 100 shorts. So that's not a lot of feedback for that amount of content. But September is going to be even crazier. Like September, I have September. No, September. Like people are not going to believe me when I say this, but September I have 280 shorts scheduled. 280 shorts scheduled, and in videos I'm toning them down just to give more room to breathe because I think they perform better. But shorts, I'm
Yeah.
trying. Like if I could, I would upload like 10 shorts every hour, but that is a bit. Yeah,
Oh wow, man! Pumping them out. Good on you.
yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, that's the kind of thing with delegation. I think with video editing is much easier. I have a hard time delegating in my 3D rendering kind of business
Mm.
because the tools that I use are a bit too specific. Like SketchUp and Landscape is not super popular in terms of getting high quality 3D work. It's more so for conceptual work, so that has kind of been my struggle more so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, have you tried any delegation with your content creation side of things, or right now you just prefer to do it yourself?
Yeah, a little bit of delegation on the long form. Like I
Mhm.
get someone to do video editing. I find the sweet spot for me is between, say, the 5 minute and about 20 minute mark. Because the thing is, when you get something back, you're going to need to watch the content all the way through. So let's say if it's a 10-minute video, like no matter what, unless I put it on 2 times speed, it's going to take me 10 minutes to watch, and then it's going to take however long to actually give feedback. Whereas if I do, say, a 4 hour video, like, or one I've released just recently, like 3.5 hours, to
Mhm.
watch through and be like, and watch everything, it's just, it takes way too long. So I might as well just go through while I'm watching the video and just cut that bit out. Yep, no, that's all right, and just have the one pass. So
Yeah.
on a really really long form, I think just myself. On the medium form, it's been so handy and it's just so satisfying to know that in the background someone's taking care of it. But then for the short form, for me, it's a different. I haven't found a format for a short form that I'd be happy delegating just yet. For
Mhm.
me, for TikTok, for the type of content I was making for that, I felt like every second needed to earn its next second. So it had to be visually interesting and also
Yeah.
educating at the same time. So
Do you
the
do you
yeah,
script all the videos that you make?
all of the short form, yes. I want as
Mhm.
much condensed, valuable information in a short period of time as possible. And the
Like,
only way I've found to consistently do that is to script it. Medium form and long form, no scripting at all. Because
yeah.
yeah,
Uh, for me, it's a bit of a mix. I firstly, I was scripting the content like when I started because I didn't believe that I was fluent enough to just start the camera and just start talking. Then this year, I have done most of the videos without a script, but recently I've started to script again because Right now, it's not more so on the script is not more focused on trying to make sure that I do not forget information. Like back then, that was kind of my objective with the script. Like, let's not try to mention this and that. Right now, it's more to kind of have more control on the psychological effect that is having on the viewers. So but what I was getting to is in terms of delegating, if you do write your scripts, what I found very useful is that in certain phrases of the words that you're talking about, you can always just highlight or comment. Like you can add a comment on that and then explain to the video editor what you want to do when that frame comes up, right? And then you can
Yeah.
just send the script together with the footage, and they can kind of get an idea of what you want to achieve with that. I mean, that was very useful for me.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of it. Do you use Frame by any chance?
No, no.
Oh, dude, if you're outsourcing or delegating, yeah, Frame I only found out just recently. I'm part of a small group of content creators that we just all share tips and tricks and things that we found. So this person had started delegating before I did, so I picked their brain, and they said they used Frame.io. So with Frame.io, you can literally, it's like doing a markup on top of video. So you can just mark up, you can circle this, point to this, just remove this section, and you can
Yeah,
have comments, like comment on the video itself just down below. So
I have it
yeah,
open on.
for me, it's
It
been
looks very useful.
so
It's
handy.
just the thing. Yeah, the thing is that I can't. Like the video editor that I have is here in the office, so I can communicate with him in person
Oh,
as
dude,
well.
perfect.
Yeah. So that's the upper side. The only thing that I use the scripting that I said before is before even starting to edit. That way we kind of have an idea. I sometimes even sit down with the video editor and we brainstorm ideas together. And that's kind of the workflow that we do. So yeah.
That's awesome. If you get someone in person, man, that's the best kind of setup you can have. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have set up that right now, and it's very useful, and we're planning to get someone else as well, so to put out even more content. Like with content, I believe that volume is very, very useful, especially with short form. Some people
100%.
prefer quality over volume, and I think it's debatable. But with my logic is that the more content you put out, the faster you're gonna get feedback on what works and what doesn't, and you can just double down on the things that are working. So
Yeah, 100%. I'll just
yeah.
put, yeah, I know, yeah, just the video like there for a second. So also,
Mhm.
just was going
Yeah.
to second.
Um,
That's good.
the other thing that I wanted to talk with you is more so, uh, how do you think this new wave of AI is going to impact architecture and the way that we learn architecture as well? Like, are certain skills not going to be as prioritized with AI now?
I think that certain aspects of how people are being educated in architecture are already a little bit antiquated. If I'm to be like blunt, really blunt and really honest,
Hmm.
which is, it kind of sucks to say. So hopefully we can integrate the tools quick. There's just certain things like within architecture. I haven't talked about to anyone else in architecture about this, like face to face with someone who's in field and doing all this kind of stuff. But like model making is such a big part of like a lot of people's curriculum. Like so much time spent doing it. And look, I get it. Like you can have hands on, you can get a bit of a like hands on understanding of how things might go together. But
Hmm.
you're never going to get asked to in an actual office to build a model of something. You're going to show them a 3D model, and they're just going to fly through and be like, "Oh, yeah, that looks cool. Actually, could you lift up the door there? Yep, perfect. That's all good." So, and if you are going to get a model made, get it done by a professional. Get someone who does it day in, day out, not someone who dedicates like 5 minutes or like just one small module. So,
Yeah.
in that way, I feel like we've already got a bunch that we need to update in the curriculum that's already being taught. Now, to tie it into AI, this is just going to be massive fuel on the fire. It's going to be, to me, I'm optimistic. I feel like it's stepping up from hand drafting to what AutoCAD was. You're going from something that you can literally copy and paste a plan 300 times without having to trace over stuff.
Hmm.
So it's that step to AutoCAD, then from AutoCAD to actual 3D. Like, and I think we're going from that 3D step to the next thing from there with all the AI tools. I don't know if
100%.
you've seen like Finch 3D, but
Yes. Yeah, I
I
just talked. I think I'm gonna have him on the podcast soon. I think that is gonna
I'd
be
love
an
to watch
insane
that, man. His
conversation. That is gonna be an
Yeah,
insane conversation. And the other thing is, you mentioned about being optimistic, and like I'm also very optimistic, but at the same time, we also have to be realist, in my opinion. Like for example, in the 3D rendering kind of things, I'm not saying that 3D renders will be left out of job or they're going to be replaced. It's just that 3D rendering in general is always becoming more and more accessible by architects, and some architects do not need high quality 3D renders, right? Like the baseline for 3D renders that are needed is just dropping lower and lower, and then people can was that, I forgot the name of that kind of AI extension for Revit that creates renders. I'm not sure if you've seen it. Like I know it's
yeah,
not super optimized yet. The thing is, one day architects can just be in the modeling and just type in create this render with a sunset and a mountainous background and stuff like that, and the render is going to be ready. It might not be as high quality as 3D artists, but it's just that the barrier between the 3D artist and architect is just uh, it's just not going to be as needed for low tier kind of work anymore, and that might be good for some 3D artists, and it might be not so good for lower tier 3D artists. And I think we just have to be ready to adapt to whatever comes through.
yeah, 100%. I guess it all also comes down to supply and demand as well. Like for a lot of the projects I've done in the past, um, honestly, if the client gets like a basic idea of the actual shape and form, like they're pretty well sweet. But there are other avenues like real estate. A lot of real estate are bringing in 3D artists now to do internal renders. To they take a photo like and just have it redone up. And people like family who aren't as acquainted with the software that we're using,
Of
they're just
course.
like they didn't realize it wasn't real. They were just like, oh, they 3D modeled
Yeah.
this. So
The other thing,
they're yeah.
if there's one kind of field that I would suggest people who are into 3D stuff that can be is going to be more sustainable, in my opinion, is jump to virtual reality. I think virtual reality and AI are kind of the new generation kind of thing. So if you can jump into virtual reality, I don't think I think it's going to be a bit more sustainable than just images, because images right now are pretty. There's not a huge barrier to create 3D images anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I think it's a very interesting space, and it's a space that's evolving so quickly. Like you have had your finger on the pulse of it from the get go. Like as far as seeing Dali go to Dali 2, then all of a sudden you got Mid Journey. Like just how quickly the iterations are coming together, and how good the results can be, man. I don't know how much you've been playing with Mid Journey, but just a little while back, just going from the small refinements that they're making it so the hands are more accurate. They're making it so that you can anyway.
it's
I could
insane.
go on and
I
on, man.
think even architecture firms right now have prompt engineers. I think I was talking with Oliver from upstairs about this. They have prompt engineers, which basically the only responsibility for them is to try and find the best prompts in order to get the best ideas for conceptual work in design, which is very cool. Um, it's much better than calling them AI artists, because I don't know what that even means. But yeah.
Yeah,
So
it'll be interesting to see how our definitions and what kind of jobs pop up as we explore through this new technology.
100%. Well, it was a pleasure to have you on the podcast. This is usually the kind of length that I have the podcast to. And usually at the end of the podcast, I ask the guest what would be kind of your advice for people who are just starting out in architecture, and how can they mix it in with content creation, because I really want to push people to do as much content creation in this space as possible, because it's a very untapped space and full of opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. No, that's I really dig that, man. Like encouraging people to jump into the space. The more of us there are in this architecture space, the bigger the pie gets. It's and the more people you've got to collaborate with. So yeah, the more the merrier. I feel like for actual content creation. Now, as far as starting, if you're a student, then you've whether you're a student or if you're a full blown pro, there's so much potential in between that entire spectrum. If you're a student, you have so much potential to share your journey of becoming competent within architecture. So from the start, like, all right, this is my first drawing. Then like after it got marked, then like, and so on and so forth.
just
Like you didn't
document
know
what.
what, yeah, document the journey, exactly, 100%. So documenting the journey. Then from, if you're a professional, you've got so many things that are available at your fingertips that so many people just like who are starting off won't. Like you've got access to real life projects, ways that you problem solve actual things that pop up. It might be heritage zoning. It might be just random parameters that you have to work around. That's not part of like an assignment. This is real world. This is stuff you actually have to deal with to get a result for the client who's paying for your service.
100%.
So
Yeah.
whether you're starting or whether you're an established professional, you can make content. You can make compelling content. And if you're in that intermediate phase where you're right in the middle, there's so much you can share. If you look, like literally just walking down the street, if you are from a different culture that has a construction method that mightn't be that well known, or how their construction method is put together, there's so, like, I did a video on drip inducers, something I couldn't think of that could be more boring. Like it's literally just something, a little detail on the edge of a
I saw
balcony.
it. Yeah, I saw it. It's for the underneath, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Oh, that's cool. That's great to hear. 1.8 million, like that was one of my, like 1.8 million views for this boring little detail, but I was able to show
That was
its
in
function in
TikTok,
a
right?
visually compelling way. Oh, pardon?
In TikTok, right? Or
Yeah, TikTok. Yeah. And that's the other thing. If you're getting into the content creation space and you're getting started, this is where short form is such a powerful format because you can get so many reps in within a short span of time. For me, my journey started when I kicked off. I said, I'm going to make 100 videos and I want to make them within the span of a year. I said, I can't quit until I've made 100 videos and I need to have it done within the span of a year. So what does that realistically look like? So within the span of a year, 365 days, let's say we take out 60 days just for if stuff pops up. So that essentially gives you 300 days. That means one video every 3 days if you want to make 100 videos within the span of a year, which I thought was relatively achievable if I could dedicate the time, because all you need is 4 good sentences. If you can come up with 4 good sentences that are engaging and that provide value to your audience, you've already got an incredible start for a video. So 4 sentences, you can make it a bit longer, provided it's within that 1 minute duration. So that way you can put it on all the different platforms. You can go YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can put it on all the short form areas because you're going to have different audiences on each of those different platforms. It's just so ripe to share so much powerful information and learn yourself. Tying back to that thing in the beginning is if you start and you're trying to provide value for people, even if you lose, you're going to win because you went through that process. So to me, please make content, especially in architecture. I love nerding out on this stuff, and I'd love to see more passionate people in this space.
And not to mention that you will also get skills for video editing while doing all this stuff, like a lot of other skills rather than just architecture. And another thing that I totally remember now that you mentioned, people have this conception that you have to learn or kind of teach how to get from level 1 to level 10, when if you can just get people from level 1 to level 3, that's going to be more than good enough. So yeah.
100%.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you for being here, and hopefully we can have you as a guest here again, or even with other kind of collaborations on this channel. Yeah,
I'd love to, man. That sounds good. Thank you very much. All right, have a good one.
Bye.